thought leadership is at multiple levels, right? So one is thought leadership is at an individual level, which is how you think is different from everyone around you. How do you see differently? How do you learn differently? How do you be differently? So when you combine all of these three things, actually you will find that what you think, the thoughts that you have are already different from everyone else around you. So that's number one. So then comes thought leadership at a team level, which is, when you have people who are understanding what's going on and are able to think differently from what everyone else is thinking in order to solve specific problems or in order to address specific issues, then there is thought leadership at a team level. Then thought leadership happens at an organizational level, which is, as an organization, if you are able to, apply thought leadership, you are able to, number one, build better products, or you are able to build better go-to-market, you are able to, acquire customers and do better for yourself. So what we are going to do today and for the rest of the sessions is to focus on what can we do so that we can be better thought leaders as individuals. So that's going to be the focus for the rest of the series, which means that what we will do is we will focus on how can we see differently from everyone else. So there are frameworks, there are exercises that we will talk about that will allow us to see things differently from everyone else. So then there are, we will also talk about how can we think differently, which is, I'll share some frameworks and some practices that we can apply in our lives so that which allow us to not only think differently once, but do so on an ongoing basis consistently across the board, right? So there are frameworks, thinking frameworks that are, so that we will talk about those as well. So, and then how do we learn differently? So that's another thing that we need to do so that when all these three things come together, when you see differently, when you learn differently, when you think differently, is when you actually are able to come up with your thinking, which is number one, elevated, number two, different, and number three, and apply to a particular situation, apply to a particular problem. That is when it actually helps you in your situations. Now, where is it helpful? It can be helpful in helping you stand out within your team in terms of, you are able to, you then become the go-to person whenever there is a challenge that the team wants to solve. Showcase your thought leadership in a public way, then you become the go-to person, not only for your team, but for outside of your team as well, and in the public domain as well. So we will talk about all of that as well. So first is thinking, right? So that's the thought part of thought leadership. Then comes the leadership part of thought leadership, which means that it is not enough to think differently. You also need to act on those thoughts. You also need to put those thoughts in action. So we will talk about how can you deliver your thoughts in a way that is both comprehensively understandable by everyone else, and in a way that is both building your competence, showcasing and building and showcasing your competence, building and showcasing your confidence, and building and showcasing your commitment to the topic that you are building your thought leadership on, right? So that's the crux of building your thought leadership. So you will find there are some common themes here, right? So number one is they're able to think differently. They're able to wield influence on others by way of their thoughts and their actions, right? So if you actually look at it, those two things, when they come together, is when someone can be called a thought leader and someone is recognized as a thought leader. And that's exactly what we want to do between now and, let's say, 3 months, is to get you started on that journey. If you actually look at another thing which is underlying that, those two characteristics, is that you trust them, right? Only when you trust them can you actually give them the influence that they wield, right? So when you trust them, why do you trust them? Because number one, you understand their thinking, because they've clearly articulated their thoughts through frameworks, through their talks, through their presentations, through their blogs, through any other medium of communication. So which means that it is important for you to develop your ability to think creatively and differently. You need to be able to develop your ability to communicate those things clearly and consistently, and build trust amongst a certain set of people so that they can give you the influence, because influence is always gained. So someone needs to give you the influence as well. So we will talk about all of these as we go along. And so that's when you actually become a thought leader. So you can do it within your team. So if your target audience is just your team, so you can do it within your team. If your target audience is your customers and partners, you can do it with them. If you are willing to build your thought leadership in industry, then you publicly start talking about and sharing your thoughts and frameworks and ideas publicly, so that you can actually build a public thought leadership practice. So that's something that we will look at as we go along as well. So now comes the question, what is it that you want to become a thought leader about? So you cannot generally be a thought leader. Okay, I'm a thought leader. You are a thought leader about something. So for example, if you look at Sam Altman, let's say, so he's a thought leader on artificial intelligence and general, generative AI. If you look at Simon Sinek, he's a thought leader on leadership. So if you look at Michelle Obama, so she's also a thought leader on leadership, or for women. Narayan Murthy, maybe he's a thought leader on building and scaling IT organizations. If you look at my thought leadership practice, it's on two things. So one is on leadership, two is on leading large-scale transformations. So those are the two topics that I'm building my thought leadership practice on. Now, the question is, what do you want to build your thought leadership practice on? What do you want to become? What is it that you want to be a thought leader of? This is a question that we need to ponder. Now, how do you decide what is it that you want to be a thought leader about? Right? It's a bit of self-awareness question, and it's also a bit of strategic question. Right? In some cases, you may want to become a thought leader on a particular topic that you are not already a thought leader. So which means that you need to build your thought leadership. You need to build your ability of or understanding on the topic. Some things you are already an expert on. So you can build your thought leadership on something that you're already an expert on. Now, how do you identify that? So there are three E's, I call them. So you can build your thought leadership based on your essence, which is who you are. Yeah. Or you can build your thought leadership based on your experience, which is what you have done in your life. Or you can build your thought leadership based on your expertise. What do you know? So one of these three things can actually drive what topic you become a thought leader on. So essence, which is who you are. For some, it can be, I am, let's say I'm passionate about X. It could be, let's say, I'm passionate about sustainability. I'm passionate about leadership. I'm passionate about technology. I'm passionate about AI. I'm passionate about security. I'm passionate about whatever it is, right? So that's who you are and what drives you. So that's the first one. where your thought leadership can come from. Second is your experience. What have I done in the last 15, 20 years of my life? For example, I have done customer advocacy for the last 12 years. So, or I've done sales for the last 12 years. So I can build thought leadership on sales. I have done product management for the last 20 years. So I can build my thought leadership on product management. I have done operations for the last 12 years or 15 years. So I can build my thought leadership on operations. I've done supply chain for the last 20 years. So I can build my thought leadership on supply chain. Right? The third one is my expertise. What do I know? So it could be different from what you've done in the last 12 years. So for example, in my case, I have done customer advocacy for the last 12 years. Before that, I was in partner recruitment. Before that, I was in franchisee management. Before that, I was in sales. Before that, I was in customer service. Before that, I was in manufacturing. So I've done all of that. But my core, what I know is leadership. So my thought leadership is on leadership. So that's what I know. Right? So these are the three areas from where you can build your thought leadership. Now, I do not expect you to have an answer in terms of, where your thought leadership will come from. But this is a question that I want you to deliberate on between now and the next session as to what are you going to become a thought leader of? And where will that thought leadership come from? Because that will determine what your next steps are going to be. That will determine how are you going to apply the see different, learn different, and think different framework to your thought leadership. So far, thought leaders are people who deeply understand what they're talking about, and they create their own, or they're not just talking about opinions. Of course, they also talk about opinions, but thought leaders have those opinions based on insights that they have because of their expertise or their experience or their essence in terms of who they are. Let me give you an example. Okay, so you can become an influencer by sharing, by singing, or by sharing content which you've not created yourself. So I'll just give you a TikTok example. There are these trends that happen on TikTok. You just follow the trends and you become an influencer because, there is a whole lot of people who start following you and you become an influencer. On a topic, let's say, for example, on, let's say, AI as a topic. An influencer and a thought leader, the difference, if you ask me, an influencer is someone who takes what everyone else is saying or doing and repurposes that. Whereas a thought leader is able to take what someone else is saying and add to that his own insights, and which means that the insight that he's sharing is new, is not regurgitated from what already is being shared. So if you actually look at today on LinkedIn, I don't know whether you've seen this, but LinkedIn will pop up on your app saying that, here is an article that has been written by artificial intelligence, and can you add your insight on that particular article, right? Now, what happens is you will find there are many, many people who will just simply take what has already been shared elsewhere and publish it there. They will take something that is written in a book and just publish it there. Mm-hmm. Sometimes with attribution, which is saying that, this is not my thought. Someone else said this about this. And sometimes they do that, sometimes they don't. I personally feel that, if you are a thought leader, you will always say that. I read about this particular topic. This X person said this about this. And by the way, here is what I think. And this is why.
Okay. All right.
The moment you say the typical path, there are two paths that you can take to building your thought leadership. So before I go there, building an audience is also something that we will cover at a later point in time in one of those sessions, which will be on building your influence session. We will also talk about how do you build an audience, but we will come to that. Coming to answer your question, there are two paths that people can take when you are early in your career and when you do not necessarily have already deep expertise in a particular topic or a long experience of having done something, right? So the thought leadership can come from your essence in terms of who you are or what you're passionate about. The second path can come from you picking a topic and wanting to learn deeply about that topic and sharing what you're learning as you go along. So, for example, I'll give you an example. So, for you decide that I want to become a thought leader in marketing as a topic. So then what you do is you find and learn marketing in such depth, and while learning, you share what you're learning for people who are earlier in their career. So I'll tell you this, for example, I have a son who's 19 years old. He's in college, second year college. And I was having the same conversation with him in terms of, what is it that you're passionate about and what is it that you want to build your thought leadership on? And he said, I'm passionate about gaming. I said, okay. So then you start learning about gaming and start talking about gaming. So you need to understand that thought leadership is not just about thinking alone. It is also about being in public. So public can be different for different people. So if you only want to be thought leader in your team, then you need to be public in your team. So you need to share what you're learning and what your thoughts are in your team. If you want to be a thought leader in the public domain, then you need to start talking about whatever it is that you want to be a thought leader on in public. So for example, I told my thought leadership practices on leadership. So if you actually go back and look at my public presence, I have a blog, 850 plus posts on that blog, almost 70% of them on leadership. I have a podcast, 65 episodes on the podcast, almost every one of them on leadership. I have videos on YouTube on leadership, in some way connected to leadership. I have written 3 books, and every one of them, in some way or the other, connected to leadership. I have delivered masterclass, again, some way or the other, connected to leadership. Public. So all of this is available publicly because I want to be in the public domain. You may decide, I don't want to do that. I just want to do it for my team or within my team. That is also a possibility. Again, as I said, those are the decisions that we need to make. And once we make those decisions, then we will start thinking about, okay, now that I know this is what I want to build my thought leadership on, how can I think? Where can I find content which I can build upon? Where can I find the depth in that particular topic so that I am different from everyone else around me? How can I learn differently? How can I learn to see differently? How can I start thinking differently? And then how do I start delivering differently, which is how do I be different, right? So how do you share differently? How do you build the trust and deliver content differently? And that is when you start building, number one, your audience, number two, your influence. And do you, when do you know you're a thought leader? The day you decide that I want to be a thought leader on X is the day you become a thought leader. When do others recognize you as a thought leader? When people start coming to you for advice. When people start coming to you saying that, okay, let's say, for example, Arvind, how do we address this? Or, Sandhya, what do you think about this? Or Naveen, I read your blog and I really liked it. Though that's when you are building, you can say that, your practice is truly started being recognized. So at one point in time, the idea is before the end of the 12 weeks that we have together, I want each one of us to have publicly, public can be, as I said, to each, whatever we mean by public. So have created thought leading content on the topic that we decide we want to build our thought leadership on, at least 3. So it can be a video, it can be a blog, it can be a presentation, it can be a whatever piece of content. It needs to be a thought leadership content, which means it is your content based on your insight that we have created before the end of the 3 sessions, the 12 sessions that we have, at least 3 of them. Another reason why thought leadership is getting more and more critical is because of availability of tools like ChatGPT, right? You will find someone, I think Brian mentioned this, I think Naveen mentioned this, and someone else also mentioned it, right? You will find that more and more artificial intelligence is going to be integrated into your workflow as we go along. I do not know how many of you already integrate any of these tools. I do. For example, one of the things that I do as part of my job is to run a lot of activities, events, which means I have to set up registration pages. I have to send out email invitations. I have to write blogs for these invitations, right? The content. A lot of times for some very specific things, I just go use ChatGPT and make some edits and publish for the email invitations that go out to the customers. So that is already happening. You will find more and more content being created also by the AI tools. In this world, if you really want to stand out, everyone else is going to do this. So if everyone else is doing this, how do you stand out? Is by having unique insights and being able to share those insights, right? So that's important. And that's also one of the reasons why developing your thought leadership, the ability to think in a way that is different from everyone else becomes that much more important. And another thing is the problems that you're going to solve or you are going to be expected to solve are going to get more and more difficult because all the easy problems will be solved by technology. So if we are going to solve more and more difficult problems, it will require a lot more depth in terms of how you think. And having a scaffolding or having frameworks of how to think deeply on a particular topic is going to get more and more critical. And that is what we will also talk about when it comes to the entire series of sessions that we are going to go about. So,
Mukesh, I had a question. Sorry, because you're proceeding.
Each one of us to decide which criticisms or which comments to respond to. Now, the world has become polarizing and polarized. Now, the question is, do you want to contribute to the polarization, or do you want to contribute to, bringing people together? There are some comments which are specifically meant to get response from you. No, they are very provoking or very attacking your person. So the difference between a thought leader and everyone else is you respond to criticism on your idea and not respond to the criticism on the person who's having the idea. So if someone says, okay, I do not agree to your idea, and here are 3 reasons why, you can choose to respond to that person if you think that the ideas that the reason that they are giving is reasonable and is insight driven and not necessarily opinionated. So, for example, you say, I want to build my thought leadership on X. Someone says, okay, I don't believe what you're saying. You are completely wrong. And here are 3 reasons why you are completely wrong. And if you think that there is depth to those 3 reasons, you respond to that. If you think there is no depth to those 3 reasons, and those 3 reasons are just opinions that someone is sharing without any factual knowledge or without any base or without any insight, you don't respond to it. That's it. There's nothing else that you can do. If you respond to them, then all it does is create more and more, how do I put it? It's dancing with the devil, if I may say so. But if you think that there is depth in their thinking, and if their points make sense, but if you still don't agree, you can still voice your opinion, saying that, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but here is why I think I don't agree. And at one point in time, you can say, okay, we agree to disagree and move on. You don't need to continue to have the conversation all along. So
you meant to say maybe
on, and we have to justify everything that we put out. You don't need to. So as long as your initial content, piece of content that you have written is deep enough and stands on its own, you don't need to justify it. It is only when you feel that it is not deep enough and it cannot stand on its own that you are feeling to justify what you've written is there. And it's just a feeling. As long as you are able to make that content stand on its own and there is enough depth of your thought and the conviction that you have that I have done my job to the best of my ability in terms of, how I have thought and how I have written my piece or I have said my piece and it stands on its own, you don't have to respond. I tell you, people who respond and to every comment are typically those who burn out really fast and are also not considered really great thought leaders, because then what people say is, okay, he's got nothing else to do, nothing better to do than to respond to trolls. If you actually look at, can you see my slides?
Yes.
So this is the progression. Okay. So if you actually look at expertise, okay, thought leadership, if you actually look at it, so it goes in this progression. Okay, so you are a beginner for a particular topic. So then you become an advanced beginner, which is, when you are a beginner, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know anything, right? So when you are an advanced beginner, you know something, but you don't know a lot. When you are competent, you know a lot, but you also know what you don't know. Right? When you are a practitioner, you understand a lot more. What you don't know, you know where to find out. Then when you become an expert, you know a lot and you are able to create and add to the overall knowledge of that particular topic. Right? And when you become master, you know which rules and what to break. What are the things that you can actually break, or what are the things that needs to be broken? What are the assumptions that needs to be broken? What are the things that needs to change in the topic? So for example, if you're talking at an industry level, at this level, you know what are the industry level assumptions that are holding the industry back. So if you're looking at a product level, you know what is holding the product back. So until this level, when you reach here, very difficult for you to know what exactly needs to be broken. Right? This is the progression that we need to go at. Influencing or becoming an influencer is an after effect of being a thought leader. By being a thought leader, you're automatically an influencer because you are influencing people who are following you in any case.